high school?
Yes.
To the elementary school?
And there's some new instruments in this for the elementary as well.
Yeah, it's not, it was never intended to be all just high school.
Right,
It's
high school,
actually,
right. It's a 4 through 12 initiative.
Would there be savings in out years? I mean, for example, you know, does the district music program replace X number of violas every year?
No,
Okay. So you won't have any savings
as far as,
in year 3, 4, I'm saying those years you front the $75,000 and the $15,000 you annually appropriate or budget for that.
Right. Yes, there would be savings.
There would be savings.
Yes, because this would replace all the instruments that the district's going to need for the next 5 to 7 years, so we wouldn't have to appropriate more instruments.
When you spoke to them though, for example, Joe, how much did we spend last year on instruments?
I don't actually have that number. Well, you see,
It's not
the reason is they didn't buy a lot of instruments because the budget was tight. Were instruments falling apart, were kids sitting there, some kids didn't have instruments, they got some donations, they've always done it on a shoestring. So they could continue to do that, and I mean, then you could say, you know, there's savings. I think in the long run, it's not savings, because eventually the instruments we have, which are in, most of which are in very bad condition, won't last that long, you know? So instead of buying 3 or 4 instruments a year over the next 5 years and paying retail, you know, we can purchase all these instruments at a significant savings, and we won't have to do that. So, you know, that's where the savings can come in, because we're at that point now where those instruments do need to be replaced. So,
And at the elementary level, are we trending to where, assuming there's a correlation because the numbers for free and reduced at the elementary level continue to go up, so I'm guessing you're seeing that in the music department as well?
yes, and the other thing is, as you know, those free and reduced numbers at the elementary level are very uneven. There's 2 schools where they're very high, and there's, you know, or 3 schools, I guess, and then 2 other ones where they're not as high. So, you know, this is gonna benefit, you know, and I've heard the board talk about it, you know, those kids in the middle. You know, a lot of people talk about those kids in the middle. And the great thing about band is that, and orchestra and chorus, all the performing groups, is everybody's welcome. It doesn't matter where you are in the academic spectrum, you're welcome. When I was in the classroom, I taught kids with Asperger's, I taught kids with, you know, verbal IQs of 65, and I taught tag kids. So it doesn't matter where you are, you're welcome, you come. And a lot of those kids that struggle, those kids in the middle that kind of get mixed in and lost in the sauce, band was and performing groups were a great way for them to shine, you know? And I would see these kids who maybe were very shy or a little bit awkward in elementary school then come up to the high school and be the drum major for the marching band. You know, they would assume these leadership roles. So, you know, there's a lot of soft costs or non-scientific information I can give you, but, you know, it benefits everyone. And if we're starting, these kids have decent instruments in 4th grade, they're gonna soar, they're gonna fly with it, and we're gonna have a program that we can continue to be proud of.
I think Fiona's point's well taken, though, that if there was a problem getting instruments into the hands of students, we would have expected to hear about it sometime before February.
the point is they struggle to get it done, and they do it admirably. But if we, you know, it's the whole squeaky wheel thing. If we don't know it's broke, we can't fix it. So if I have to use East School as an example. You know, when we were up there and we were asking questions not long ago, the problem is East School doesn't get the attention that it needs, because even though we know it's our oldest building, when you go there, it always seems to be running perfectly. So you don't know there's a problem,
Right.
you know? So shout out to you, so you can compare your society. But, you know, it's the same problem with band. You know, you hear about all the awards and the accolades, but we don't hear that you're struggling. We don't hear that you need something. It just doesn't get to our level, and I think that's what, to answer your question, Chris, I just flipped through the high school and the middle school in here. There's approximately $12,000 worth of instruments and repairs in here. So in that wouldn't be needed going forward? Or
Not the new instruments, I mean, there may be some repairs.
some repairs?
which is,
So that number would probably reduce?
But that number would reduce.
Is there a set replacement value or replacement program for instruments?
I mean, it's,
Do they estimate,
yeah, I mean,
5% of the instruments a year? 2%
yeah,
of the instruments a
it's
year?
hard to say, because we've been, every single instrument we have is so vital to keep that we sort of keep them beyond their life expectancy. But, this would certainly, we would be, getting rid of some of the ones that are just beyond repair, or if they get repaired, then they have to get repaired again because they're so old. I mean, I don't have an exact number for it, sorry.
Just my final
Oh.
budget thing.
Oh, Andy, did you have a question on instruments, or?
No.
Okay, I'll come right back to you.
The last thing is, I would like the full-time tag teacher, but I would be happy to do it part-time for this year, but I think it's an important addition, and then we can, maybe next year, make it a full-time position. And then, are we going to straw poll on the old day kindergarten?
Yes. I'm gonna go down, I've been entering these as to what we're adding, what we're deducting, so that we can put some dollar figures to it and have a total. Mr. Nash?
Just an observation that I forgot to bring up. When I look at the revenue year to year on THS student activity athletics, maybe there's an explanation for it. I don't know what it is, so maybe someone will say. But you look at basketball gate receipts, that's down, I estimate approximately 15%. Football gate receipts down approximately 25%. Swimming gate receipts down approximately 35% year over year. It would have been one thing if it was just one sport, but clearly that's a pretty steep and all-around drop in receipts that we're getting at these athletic events, and I just wonder what that says as far as the community. Is the community, as one previous board member once said, when you look at revenue from these activities, it's really mostly parents, just, it's kind of like a contribution or a donation. They go to these things, and that's who are really supporting these activities. So, in your observation, you have some?
I actually do have what I believe, and I'm gonna ask Mr. McKenna to correct me if I'm wrong on it, but I've seen a tremendous increase in the Booster Club cards over the last couple of years, where they've marketed it very heavily at the high school, where you can buy a year-long pass from the Booster Club that allows you to get into every event free. But that money unfortunately goes to the Booster Club, not to the athletic director's revenue account. When we sit down, as soon as budget is over, Mike and I have said we're gonna sit down and try to come up with a way, it was suggested by Mayor Carbone, to see if we can create a way to fund sports itself, and take some of the burden out of the budget and take the inevitable cuts every year out of the budget, the risk of sports and music. But one of the things we're definitely gonna have to look at is that a very large percentage of the students buy these Booster Club cards, but that revenue goes to the Booster Club, not back to the school and into that revenue. So that, and I know my daughter just got into it this year, and she said, oh no, all my friends are doing it because this is great. Now I can go, and she goes to every sporting event. I mean, she never went to a basketball game before, no offense to basketball people, but we're hockey people. And she's going to every basketball game, male, female, volleyball games, because now you just drop her off, she walks in. So, yeah, the revenue's going down because we're allowing that revenue to go to a private group that in turn does favor and does things for the athletic department, but it's revenue going out of our pocket directly. It goes to the Booster Club's bank account, and then they, in turn, I know they bought weights this year, and a pitching machine, I think?
Pitching machine last year.
Last year, they're using that money to buy stuff that the athletics need, but it shows a decrease in our line item because it's going another way.
The dollar amounts aren't that great. I mean,
Right. No, but
we
the
talked about the
percentage.
three, now that you explain it, I'm happy that there's more student participation, more students, more of the community goes to these events. So for the minimum amount of dollars, I'm very happy that you're
I
saying.
can't say there's an increased population, but I do know there's an increased use of the Booster Club card that it just makes your revenue look like it drops.
Okay, my only concern.
Mike wants to clarify something.
Okay.
The amount of money we take in, the ticket receipts, is also schedule driven. Last year, we had Ansonia at home. That's a big draw. They bring a lot of people to the game. We make money on that game. We had Thanksgiving Day at home. It was 65 degrees, beautiful day. We had a big crowd. This year, we played teams that do not bring people with them. The big ticket games, we were the visiting team. So in a lot of ways, some of that income will drop because of our schedule that particular year. This coming year with soccer, we play Holy Cross, Naugatuck, and Watertown all away for boys soccer. Those are three big gates that we're not going to get this year for boys soccer. We'll get them the following year. So some of those fluctuations, because we're not talking about large numbers, are simply, between the booster, the increase in the booster cards, and it's schedule driven.
Okay. Paul?
But yeah, as an ex-coach, you have to be careful. High school sports were never meant as revenue-producing activities for a school, so I hate to go down that road too much. I mean, this is not UConn. We're not trying to bring.
We gotta ride the wave, Paul.
Huh?
We gotta ride the wave. I mean, come on, we're on
Well, we have
top.
a better than 8% graduation rate.
Mr. Harris, your point I think you're trying to make is that it's a signal of the community support of athletics. I think the same number of people from Torrington continue to come to games, and some of those fluctuations you see are based upon the booster cards. We still have the kids coming to games, and the fact that Wilby's not going to bring a lot of people to a football game. Crosby's not going to bring a lot of people to a football game. If we have Ansonia home, we have Watertown home, we have Naugatuck home, we're going to see an increase in that. So it's not so much the Torrington support as the visiting team support that comes in.
Thank you.
I want to jump on that a little bit too. The thing is, with sports in general, and I'm speaking as an outsider, you can absolutely make money on sports. I don't know that we're always doing our best as far as advertising and pushing it, and I don't know all the details because I haven't talked to the AD or anything like that. But I can tell you this, and I know it's a different region and everything. I have been to high school games with 35,000 people. Granted, you can't do that here, and I get that. We don't even have that many in town. That being said, it's incumbent on us as parents and community leaders to get people excited about things like this. I have personally taken my flag football team to football games. These are things that we can do as a community. I'm really, I guess I'm kind of talking to the camera a little bit here too. This is something we can't miss on this. The extracurricular activities as far as band, these are things that these kids have to have. We have to build the excitement. The kids, they can't drive. They can't get there by themselves. It's really on us to boost this. It kills me a little bit inside because I'm a sports guy. I think most everybody that knows me knows that. I'd love to see more excitement with these teams. I've come to probably, 3 dozen football games since I've been here in '07. And I never feel like there's enough people there. I see people talking about it in town, and I don't see them at the games and things like that. So I understand what you're saying. There's money to be made there that we're leaving on the table right now. I'll just leave it at that.
Mike, it sounds like we just got a volunteer, doesn't it?
I'm in. I'm absolutely in.
I mean, he just volunteered for that group to help us fundraise.
I'm in.
Yeah, he's the new marketing agent. Fair enough. All right. I'll touch briefly on mine. I think that the budget committee did an admirable job. I think a lot of hours were spent. In my position, I also am in support of not a reduction of a CIAT, but a movement of a CIAT. I was in full support of the restructuring last year. I'm not in full support of the restructuring at the end of this year, because I feel that we should have kept an assistant superintendent. And I know Mr. Nargi at the time wanted to keep the assistant superintendent, and I believe John wanted to keep the assistant superintendent, but I sit and I have to go in and see Cheryl, and to guide this district, she's never looking through the windshield of the bus. She's always looking in the mirror, because there's so much going on behind her that's just piling up at her door. She really can't, and it's why we're getting these proposals at budget time and not when we should get them earlier in the year, because, you know, she's probably Torrington's second busiest firefighter, because she's constantly putting little fires out all over, Eleanor's the first, putting fires out all over the district. I mean, and there's just, every crisis ends up on her desk. And I think by us, and this is, you know, again, you make decisions in management, you evaluate them, you learn from them, you move. And I believe that, you know, the assistant superintendent role would pick a lot of that up and would allow the district to move in a better direction instead of constantly looking behind us. The assistant superintendent was always a curriculum-driven position. So it doesn't mean that if we took one of the CIAT positions and eliminated it, that we would lose someone in curriculum. Because the assistant superintendent's job, and Eleanor, when you were on the board, was probably 60 or 70% curriculum, and the rest of it was, you know, principal work, professional development, and so you wouldn't really lose that curriculum piece, but I think you would gain the management piece that prevents Cheryl, who's like right now supposed to be at a conference promoting superintendents of schools, but she can't go to that conference because in the past we could have an assistant superintendent sitting here, but now you can't. You know, granted it's budget, and I don't mean that she would lead during budget, but I'm just using it as an example. So, I mean, I would like to see that department reduced, but I would like to see the assistant superintendent added back in. Having said that, there's a salary difference. I would like to see the superintendent absorb that somewhere in the budget with no increase to the city, but a restructuring per se to find a way to compensate for that. I mean, that's just my recommendation. Other than that, I think we got a compelling amount of information about sports. I think that I too played 3 sports in high school, but there's a lot of programs available to the middle school kids. I don't know how rigorous that program really is in comparison to what they would get on a Park and Rec provided travel team. That we have baseball, we have soccer, we have, you know, we don't have track, we would lose track. You have the Warrior Football League, you have, I mean, there's avenues for those kids. I don't know if that necessarily has to go in. I would like to see the tag program restored to what the administration believes is a proper tag program for the gifted kids. And, you know, as far as moving the summer pay or that, I mean, I'll let that speak for the board, but those are my recommendations. Other than that, I think the budget committee did a great job. So, what, do I want that?
That was some.
I don't know if I want it. Do I want it? What is it?
Ideas of how to bring middle school sports back and where we would cut other areas of the sports.
That was provided by the athletics department.
Well, being as it was on just about everybody's list, I think we should probably hand that up. That would be a good handout. And I think sports is going to improve when we get, you know, Mr. McKenna and I have spoke for the last 2 years about the way each sport has its own group, its own fundraising, and, you know, we're all fighting for the same dollar, but we're not really, to go along with Jeremy's point, we're not using the dollars necessarily to the best benefit of everybody. And if we look at it, I think we can improve that.
What this was, no, that's okay, what Mr. McKenna put together was to show the different varsity sports, well, more than varsity, but the sports levels at both THS and PMS. And because it was explained to me too, is that you may have a team come in and they have varsity and junior varsity. And so they play, but then another team may come in with a varsity and a freshman. So we have freshmen who will play the freshmen, or it's a combination of our junior varsity and freshmen. But you have to play the same team against the other. Am I saying it right, Mike? Okay. And when I asked, I said, where could we save money, or where we could find money that we could get from any receipts that we get from the gate, and this was their recommendation.
Mike, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you know how many, if we go to Torrington Middle School, how many varsity games does each sport play? Do you have a ballpark? I don't, not to the number, but.
My guess is soccer, each the boys and girls will play 12 to 14 games.
Okay.
Basketball, the basketball, I guess, plays 20 games.
Really?
And they have a JV team. Not all the teams they play will have JV. So, all right. Jerry just corrected me. I'm getting bad information from, I guess we have 12 to 14 as a former middle school basketball coach. He's referring 12 to 14 middle school basketball.
And that's each, right, Jerry?
Each, boys and girls.
Boys play 12 to 14, girls play 12 to 14.
And baseball and softball is about the same, about 12 games, 10 or 12 games, and a lot of that is really weather. You know, we cross our fingers and hopefully we can get 10 games in.
What about track and field and cross country?
Track usually schedules about 8 meets. We have 3 or 4 home meets. This year, they're going to be going to away meets. And we reduced the number of track meets this year by a couple, because they were really getting a little overloaded with meets at the middle school.
Okay. Volleyball and cross country?
About the same. We're talking about 12 or 14 for the volleyball, and cross country is going to have probably 8 or 9 meets.
Thank you. And thank you to your source. All right, so the proposal is to eliminate the JV for the 2 basketballs and the volleyball at the middle school. Reduce the athletic trainer by 3,000. Is that at the middle school or just generally?
That's at the high school.
It's at the high school?
We currently, this contract, we're paying $12,000. The hospital wants to go to $18,000 with an increase of 5 hours a week. That's a pretty steep jump. So, I think they'd be open to, giving us a package for, we probably have to reduce our hours.
Closer.
Mike, would you join the table for a minute, because we're having trouble hearing you. Thank you.
Mike, could you repeat what you said about the athletic trainer?
The athletic trainer, we contract with Charlotte Hungerford Hospital, and this year the contract is $12,000. And the hospital has sent us a contract for next year, which would increase the number of hours the trainer would be here by 5. They also contract with Litchfield High School, Northwest Regional High School, and Gilbert. And they're upping the number of hours at Gilbert and Torrington because of football by 5 hours. They haven't had an increase in the last couple of years, and so the contract came at $18,000. So that was a big jump in our contract there.
Is the 18 in the budget?
I budgeted for the 18.
Okay, so the 3,000 is basically splitting it in half. Instead of a $6,000 increase, it's 3,000?
Yeah.
Can we ask questions on this or no?
Sure.
Okay. Have you seen either a decrease in injuries because of your athletic training program, or a quicker return back to sports for kids because of the athletic training?
Okay, I'm a little biased in that I was the athletic trainer that started
the athletic training program at Torrington High School back in 1981. I think that it's money well spent. As far as return to play, we don't have the same situation as a college where we would treat the athletes' injuries. So those would go, depending upon doctor referral, to physical therapy services. So early recognition of injuries, we do, I think, save a lot of wear and tear and ache and pain on kids by early recognition of minor injuries before they become a bigger deal.
So do you think there's a decrease in insurance?
I don't know how it affects the insurance. It's, we see a lot of kids in the training room each day. And having the trainer there, and we are lucky we have a superb athletic trainer. And I am very critical of athletic trainers. So, she does a fabulous job for us. I had a discussion last week when I was at the athletic directors conference with Naugatuck High School's athletic director, and they pay $35,000 for their athletic training services. So they get a few more hours, but it's,
You also have a reduction in the,
Yeah, real quick.
Sorry.
Yep.
No, that's okay.
I didn't see that.
Mike, we'll obviously get to know each other a lot more over the years, I promise you. As far as athletic training goes, I know we were going through Charlotte Hungerford. Is that the only avenue that we have? And the reason I'm asking is because I'm thinking just outside the box maybe, or maybe it's been brought up before, UConn has students that are going to need on the job as part of their degrees. Of course, they would have to be supervised and all of that. Have we looked that direction at all?
actually, the hospital does have a program now with Central Connecticut State, and they're just instituting a program now. They haven't gotten it fully running. We told them that we wanted to be part of it, and they would send a student athletic trainer that would work with our trainer, with the hospital's trainer who is contracted to us to be kind of on the job kind of training. What it does give you is it gives you another first aid certified person to be available, on the field, on the track. We have another person who is capable of doing some of the preventive taping and that does happen in the training room. So those kind of things, an extra set of hands is always good. We would have to still have a trainer in place. We can't take a student trainer in without the supervision of a certified trainer. Mr. Boehm and I batted back and forth the idea, and we talked about it with the superintendent, about bringing the position in-house and making it some type of a position with teaching and athletic training and that. And there's a lot of obstacles, as it's been pointed out to me, in doing that. So, that, to me, that would be the ideal. We do have kind of the ideal in that this person does work part-time. She teaches 2 classes of health and physical education here, as well as working for the hospital as an athletic trainer. So we do have her in the building more often, which is nice when I have to ask a question, just have her down the hall. So, so we do have a nice situation with this particular person.
Okay, and then my final question is, the additional 5 hours, what is that for?
Football does cause an increase in the amount of time. The games causes, because we're in a situation where we cover all of our contests, or as many of the contests as we can possibly cover. So the trainer is here for practices in the afternoon, plus maybe a soccer game at night during the week, and then football on a Friday night. So the increase is the average number of hours that it's going to end up working out in the course of a week because of football adding that extra weekend or night coverage.
Okay.
The savings to the YMCA contract.
When it came time for me to budget, I put a budget number in based upon some previous contracts that we had gotten with the YMCA, increased it percentage-wise, and the YMCA came back with a way more palatable number than what I was expecting. So we were able to, I want to say it's about $7,000 difference between what I had previously budgeted and what they sent to me. And the number came to me very late in the process. I only got the number just probably 3 weeks ago from them.
I like the number, $7,216. It's a good number. So that's actually, that's a hard savings right there.
Right.
Okay.
Excuse me for a second. What's that total number we're paying the Y? A little over 41,000 for the pools. I think, is that the number? I don't have my numbers in front of me. I think that's the number
Sounds
that,
about right.
41,200.
Football ambulances?
yeah, we didn't have them at this year's games, and that's roughly a $7,000 to $8,000 cost to us. It's not mandated by state law or CIAC policy as long as we have a trainer or a physician in attendance at the games. So, and I go to, I defer to, how my father always used to say, and though, the people from Torrington know, he was our team physician for 54 years. And he said, if we're not going to back the ambulance up to the practice field every day, then it's kind of silly to back it up to the field on Friday nights. Because all the studies show the vast number of injuries that happen at practices and not at games. So it's nice to have it. It does bring into the fact that if you have the ambulance there, should there be a problem with spectators, with injury, illness, you have something right there that can take care of it, and we're not calling upon our athletic medical services to have to deal with that. But again, it's not mandated by state law or CIAC regulation.
The response time, though, to get an
It's
ambulance
we get them here in a hurry. And to tell you the truth, in the last 2 years, we've had to call them 3 times for basketball games, 1 time for soccer, and 1 time for football, and we probably didn't even have to call them for that one. That was more, a kind of a miscommunication between people. So, we don't have them at these other events.
Yeah, the police brought him in once for a spectator this year
Yeah,
in a football game, and that was a complete misunderstanding.
Right. So,
That ambulance came and left that.
yeah. So it's, again, I think just to have them there for football, I think is really,
Your uniform savings is a deferment?
when we budgeted for football uniforms, it was, I think, around 16.5 we budgeted for football uniforms. They are expensive, and we got a great quote on a great uniform, and we're gonna end up paying probably just under $12,000 for the uniforms, so we will have a savings there.
Eliminate the indoor track program?
It sounds like a big deal, but we do offer track and field. Indoor track is really a season that's built around 2 events, the Naugatuck Valley League Championship and the state championship. So it's not like the outdoor season where you have 8 meets that you're going to compete in before those championships. Question? How
many students participated in the indoor?
About 80 this year,
You had 80,
yeah.
and the entire program only cost $13,000?
Yeah.
So I don't think track, from my observation over the years, is kind of like the swimming program. You always noticed that, it seemed to me anyway, that many of our really high-performing students academically we're also part of the track team. And I hate to kind of eliminate such large participation of students for $13,000.
I'm all for not eliminating any program.
Well, I would, I mean, track especially, like I say, it's, I'm shocked that you said 80 students participate. But it's like you always say with the swimming program. You always get great kids, really devoted. It's just one of those sports that these kids are, they're the type of kids that get up early and do the extra to participate in these types of athletic events. And if the board, I think it's a big mistake to eliminate it.
Well, none of these cuts were easy. Mike had a full
I
head of
understand
dark
that.
hair before he started this list.
The rationale behind the track cut was that we do offer a track program. And to cut other programs that we do not offer the program seemed to be illogical as far as the
Well,
saving of the money.
Well,
So
what are we eliminating other than the track program as far as?
we're
No,
gonna have
I'm
to,
saying instead of selecting a program that doesn't have another season. Track has the outdoor season, so he just said, instead of eliminating a sport entirely, he only eliminated one season of a two-season sport.
Okay, I just hate to see it. Like I said, for
Yeah.
$13,000 to keep 80 kids participating for a whole season, which is the winter kind of is, in this area, pretty depressing to start with. The kids get to run around and participate. I think it's a well worth investment to keep it. I don't know how the rest of the board feel.
To go off Mr. Nargi's point, Mr. McKenna, is this, I'm assuming that's true, but indoor track is almost like a bridge between the seasons for higher performing athletes on either side, just to stay in shape? Do you have a lot of overlap?
there are a lot of, I couldn't give you an exact number, but I'm gonna say there's a significant number of athletes that are maybe baseball players, softball players that are participating in indoor track as a way to get in shape for their upcoming season. I think that it's a valuable program. By recommending it be eliminated, I'm not in any way saying it's not a valuable program. It's just if we have to get to a certain number, and, I'm looking at what we need to remove, I would, that was one recommendation that we came up with as a way to get to that number.
And it serves both sexes, so we don't
Right.
run into any issues there.
I just had a clarification on the football uniforms. They were originally budgeted for 21,000?
No. That was a lump sum for uniforms and equipment.
Okay.
Okay, the equipment, and we talked about it at the budget committee. Part of our problem with football equipment is regulations on how they're reconditioned and how they're recertified. Football helmets, which is the big ticket item, have a 9-year lifespan from the date they're manufactured. If that helmet sits in our equipment room and is never used, at the end of 9 years, it has to get thrown away. It cannot be recertified for use. So we are replacing a large number of helmets and shoulder pads on a regular basis. Is it gonna be that same number every year? No. This year, we had 16 helmets that came due by, just by manufacture date. And they, at $220 to $230 a piece for the helmets, the number starts to go up very quickly. Shoulder pads, they don't have the same manufacture date issue, but they have to be recertified. So each year, the shoulder pads that are used during the season are sent for reconditioning, and some of those might be eliminated because of damage and wear. So we do see that, 4 or 5, maybe some years it might be $3,500 for equipment, but it's gonna be, in that range.
Well, I appreciate you going back and trying to look through this a little bit deeper. Thank you for that.
One thing we kind of stumbled on this year with the company that does our reconditioning and also gave us the best price on our uniforms. They have a manufacturer's deal going on, and we were able to, we can purchase at a very discounted price. We can, through packages, and we can save a lot of money, so we're actually gonna be able to get more equipment for the same dollar that we have there than what we were anticipating.
Back to indoor track, with only 2 events, is it as long a season as the others, or is it a shorter season?
No, it's a little shorter than the other winter seasons. Everything is wrapped up by the end of February with the state track meets. It's not just those 2 events. There are invitational meets that the kids go to, but really those are, nobody goes there to win that meet. They go there, trying to get qualifying times for the state meet, trying to get their qualifying times for the league meet that's coming up, because you have to make the qualifying time in order to be able to go to the bigger meets. But it really revolves around those 2 meets.
Your next is eliminate the diving coach?
Yeah, again, we don't have a large number of divers. They do not compete at our home meets because the YMCA pool is not deep enough to support a diving program at that pool. The Winston YMCA is deep enough, and they do train there. So again, they're training, and there's other schools that don't have diving at their meets. So you're training for a few dual meet situations, but basically training for the NVL championships and the state championships. It's a low number of student athletes. It's approximately 8 kids total between the boys and girls program. So in talking with our swim coaches, that was, one of the suggestions that they came up with as a possibility. They don't want to lose the coach, but if it is that, or we had to cut back on practice hours for the swim team itself, I think that was their thought process.
Does it mean you won't have diving, or you just won't have a diving coach?
Well, that's gonna have to be, the swim coaches would then have to work out becoming their own diving coaches, which becomes a logistical problem because the divers practice at the Winston Y, and some of the practices conflict with our team practices at the Torrington Y.
Right.
So it's a bit problematic.
Have we approached the lasers program to allow the divers to practice with them and then compete in our meets?
I have not.
Because they have diving coaches, and, if we could work an arrangement with them.
I'll check that out.
Freshman sports paid for by gate receipts. You feel your gate receipts on your other sports will?
Again, if all the pieces fall into place, and we got Thanksgiving Day this year, and, let's not have snow on Thanksgiving Day. I would like to see freshman sports stay. Losing that connection, again, if we're gonna keep middle school sports in, and then we're taking away freshman programs in some of these, and, the continuity. Last year with boys soccer, we had so many kids that were of equal ability that Coach Fritz ended up keeping a larger number, and we actually worked out having a couple of schools from the Berkshire League actually played our freshman-only kids in freshman games. Same, the JV coach coached the freshman kids in that. We didn't have a freshman program, but we were able to find a couple of games so that those kids that weren't getting a
a lot of playing time on the JV team were able to get 2 or 3 games of solid competition. We could add freshman soccer on the boys level anyway, without any problem at all. We could probably add JV soccer at the middle school with the numbers of kids that come out, and the fact that 6th graders very rarely get to play on the soccer team because the older kids, by physiology, are going to have those positions kind of sewed up, and so it's you know, there's a lot of issues that go with eliminating a program, eliminating a freshman program, eliminating a JV program, as far as that continuity of the kid being in the program. If he comes up, he doesn't make the JV or varsity team as a freshman, you know, a lot of those kids don't end up coming back. So, you know, we went through this a number of years ago where we eliminated freshman sports, and the program definitely took a downturn for several years after the return of freshman sports, while we had that gap of kids that had left the program.
Your projected gate receipts for this current year is $34,650.
No, it's not. That's not my number. I don't, we average somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 a year on average, and it depends. Thanksgiving year, we're probably gonna be $4,000 higher if we have good weather. If we have Ansonia home, we're gonna be higher. So we don't have Ansonia on our schedule the next 2 years in football, so we won't get an Ansonia home game.
The numbers we were
Student
given,
activities.
those numbers
These
we
are
were,
for 12-13, are you looking at 12-13?
Now, there was carryover money
the
in.
12-13 numbers you gave last week were $44,156.
No, that,
13-14 numbers
Total
were
without
34,000.
expenses, Mike, hang on.
Were 34,650.
Yep,
Okay. And then our expenses for 12-13 were 12,800,
yep,
so that nets you out 32,000.
yeah.
And then
Total, this is student activities for
for these sports.
sports, right?
Right.
Because like there's soccer club pink out sales, for example, that's
Yep.
not gate receipts.
that doesn't come to me
So
though.
you're
Right.
just,
This is full athletic revenue.
Right.
I apologize.
But that, the pink
but
out
when
sales
Mike
aren't
and I
through
did
the athletic
it, we said
department.
it's about 25,000.
It's on average, it's 20, and gate receipts itself is about 25,000
Right.
Okay.
on average.
Yeah, but your numbers for, as of March 31st exceed, for this year, you're showing in excess of 30,000.
In excess of what?
In excess, if I'm looking at, if I just total up your revenues that you're projecting, or you've given for July 1/13 to March 31st, 14, it's at least $30,000, just
That's not just gate receipts, though.
It's 34,650.
revenues, Torrington High School
Right.
athletic revenues. And it's revenues for basketball gate, cheerleader warm-up, football game receipts, swimming gate receipts, volleyball game receipts. That number's gotta be at least 30,000.
It is.
What?
It is.
Yeah, so what are you
We
saying,
haven't- because
24?
if you look on the expense, they haven't expended anything out of student activities. Or they did.
I
but
thought we were
very
just
little.
talking about revenue.
No, we were taking.
looking at
it
it
down.
now.
Okay,
We're
well,
looking at a net. I mean, he has revenues, he has expenses.
okay.
If we take all the revenues just for the sport, then he loses everything else that that they do during the year. So you have on average a $25,000 gate receipt, so
Yes.
the 19,000 is a relatively comfortable number to cover that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Lieutenant? Thank you.
How much money do we need to reinstate middle school sports?
$69,056.
Son of a gun.
And that's what they got. That's why I like the $7,216. I like it. All right, if we take the fixed numbers in Mr. McKenna's report up top, you're at 29,531. That's through the football uniforms. If you take the elimination of the JV sports at the middle school, the athletic trainer reduction, pool reduction, ambulance reduction, and uniform reduction, that's $29,531. If we take and we add the freshman sports paid by gate receipts, that's $48,844 without impacting any high school sports.
What do you say
It's the last line item, 19, no, on the,
bring 19,
I'm sorry.
bring the 19 back in.
yeah, you're at 48,844.
Okay, yep.
Mike, if I can ask you one last question?
Yep.
Now, the diving coach covers both female and male season,
Yes.
girls and boys? Because the girls' season is actually before the laser season starts.
Okay. Yeah, it's, the amount that it saves is a combination of two. It's two assistant coaching positions for,
Is it approximately equal?
yes, they were exactly equal.
Exactly equal.
What, excuse me, on the diving, what's the expenditure, not only for the coaches for the diving, but what does it actually cost to transport the, do the students pay for the transportation?
Students get themselves to the YMCA pool.
In
And the
Winston?
YMCA does not charge us. They dive during a free swim time at the Winston Y. And actually, there's several schools that will dive during that same time. We're lucky during the girls' season is that we're the only girls' team in the area. So we have the coach and the pool to ourselves. The coach that we utilize also coaches other high schools during the winter. And so he's coaching several divers from different schools at the same time in the Y pool at that time.
But being an ex-swimmer and once a diver, although I quickly found out I didn't have the coordination for it. You hit the board once, twice, you say that's enough. I could see us cutting the diving in half because the girls' program doesn't coincide with any other program, but I think we could possibly work with the Y, the lasers program, to have the boys practice with the lasers divers and coach, but compete in our meets.
Yeah, the coach for the lasers would have to be, have a state certification in coaching for our divers.
It would be different.
Can the boys practice with the girls in that first part of the season, so as to at least have?
They're two totally different
No,
seasons.
if we did,
I understand that, but I mean, if they at least got practice time.
well, we can't sanction that because it's out of season practice then with a coach. If they want to show up at the Y during a time when there's no coaches there and dive on their own, that's up to them. But if our coach is in the pool and the boys show up during their that's a violation of CIAC rules.
You know, pool's open, it's a shame that the boys can't
Yep.
dive at the same time.